Today, we are going to break down 23 different signs that your body is running low on vital nutrients. Now, the only downside to teaching you this is that you're probably going to start diagnosing everyone. You will really have to resist that temptation because people might get offended if you start pointing out why they have little white specks on their fingernails or why they might be dealing with erectile dysfunction. But before we dive into the symptoms, let's look at the three main reasons why people become nutrient deficient in the first place. Reason number one is that their gut is damaged, which stops them from absorbing nutrients properly. This is known as malabsorption, and it acts as a major digestive barrier. Another reason could be that you're missing a gallbladder, or you are running low on bile, meaning you can't properly absorb fat-soluble vitamins like vitamins A, D, E, and K. Alternatively, you might not be eating enough of the right foods, or the foods you do eat just aren't nutrient dense. This is a massive issue nowadays because our soils are unfortunately of incredibly poor quality. If you grow food in soil that is essentially turned into lifeless dirt, you might end up with a beautiful looking tomato, but it's going to be completely tasteless. Why? Because the compounds responsible for flavor are directly tied to nutrient density. As a result, we get these gorgeous vegetables that taste like absolutely nothing, which leaves you craving Doritos or searching for extra spices to add flavor when that flavor should naturally be coming directly from the nutrition. Unfortunately, commercial farmers sell their produce based on weight and volume rather than how nutrient dense the food actually is. Finally, the third way you become deficient is by consuming refined foods and sugars, which actively deplete your body and rob you of your existing nutrition. So let's go right through the list. Number one, white spots on your nails. What does this actually mean? Well, it points to a zinc deficiency, but it's not strictly a lack of zinc in your diet. It is actually caused by consuming too much sugar, which robs your body of zinc. If you look at your fingernail and spot a little white speck about halfway down, you can bet that around 3 months ago, you consumed a large amount of sugar or refined carbohydrates. For example, maybe you went to a huge birthday party and ate the entire cake, which depleted your body's zinc reserves and created that little white mark. Moving forward, you have two choices. You can either stop eating sugar or you can start taking a zinc supplement. Number two, oily skin. This is usually an issue with your body's oil glands, known as sebaceous glands, which produce a type of oil called sebum. This overproduction typically occurs when you have an imbalance in androgens, meaning you are producing too many of these male hormones. One incredibly vital nutrient required to regulate androgens is zinc. Because of this, oily skin can be greatly improved if you start taking trace minerals, specifically zinc. Now, if you are a female and you have elevated androgen levels, you might be dealing with a condition called polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS. In that specific case, the root cause is actually too much insulin from eating a diet that is too high in carbohydrates. This combination of sugar depletes your zinc reserves, while a lack of zinc leaves your androgen levels completely uncontrolled. So, if you have oily skin, you simply need to take some zinc and make sure your sugar intake isn't too high. As you can see, zinc is heavily involved in quite a few different areas of your health. Number three, cracking on the corners of your mouth right here, or cracked skin on the back of your heels. This indicates a vitamin B2 deficiency. It could also point to a vitamin B3 deficiency, but it definitely involves the B vitamin family. B vitamins are incredibly important for preventing these types of small fissures from forming on your skin, and if you have adequate levels of B2 or B3, you won't get them. You will notice a lot of people getting these deep skin fissures during the winter months. This normally happens because they aren't getting enough sun exposure, leading to a vitamin D deficiency. Vitamin D is essential because it feeds your gut microbes, and those microbes are what actually produce your B vitamins. That is the hidden connection behind cracked heels and cracked corners of the mouth. Something I used to suffer from myself as a kid. It can be very easily resolved by taking vitamin D or by taking vitamin B2 in the form of nutritional yeast. Next up is number four, flaking skin. A lot of times, you will see this scaling flakiness develop around the nose or even across the forehead. This is a clear deficiency of omega-3 fatty acids, and it typically happens because you are consuming far too many omega-6 fatty acids. The essential fatty acids that our bodies require but cannot produce on their own include both omega-3 and omega-6. If your ratios are completely out of balance because you are consuming too much omega-6 and not enough omega-3, your skin pays the price by becoming dry, flaky, and covered in little white flakes, usually right around the nose or forehead. To fix this, you need to do two things. First, you need to start cutting down on omega-6 fatty acids, which means reducing your consumption of nuts, peanut butter, chicken, fried foods, and meals from restaurants or fast food joints. All of those are heavily loaded with omega-6 oils like corn, soy, and cottonseed oil. Second, you need to eat more fish, sardines, and cod liver oil. In fact, adding cod liver oil to your routine will be the absolute quickest way to clear up this flaky skin. Number 5, yellowed eyes. This is a jaundice situation, which points directly to a liver or gallbladder problem. What's happening is that the byproducts of your old red blood cells are backing up through your liver and spilling into your bloodstream. These red blood cell byproducts naturally have a distinct yellow color. So, if your skin or the whites of your eyes are turning yellow, you are definitely dealing with a backup in your liver and gallbladder. This is usually caused by a deficiency in bile salts. Bile salts are what allow material to flow smoothly through the liver and the bile ducts. When you don't have enough bile, a thickened cholesterol sludge forms and backs up the entire system, causing the whites of your eyes to turn yellow. A simple remedy for this would be to take some purified bile salts to essentially clear out this clogged drain plug, allowing your body to properly eliminate those red blood cell byproducts. Number 6, a chronic cough. If someone is dealing with a persistent chronic cough, they are usually suffering from a calcium deficiency. Taking a little bit of calcium, especially right before bed, works like absolute magic for these types of coughs. Calcium not only boosts your immune system, but it also relaxes the throat and the larynx, functioning much like it does when you take it to soothe cramping in your calves. Essentially, it helps relieve a condition called a laryngeal spasm, which is a sudden tightness in the structures of your throat. If you want to try this out, the specific type of calcium I recommend is calcium lactate, not calcium carbonate. You don't even need a massive dose. Just about 200 milligrams before you go to sleep will do the trick. Number 7, bleeding gums or red, swollen gums. Finding blood in your mouth when you brush is a classic sign of a vitamin C deficiency. Another term for this is subclinical vitamin C deficiency, which is essentially a very mild, early version of scurvy. Within the complete vitamin C complex, there are several different components. One of those components used to be called vitamin P, which refers to bioflavonoids. They don't use the term vitamin P anymore, but that P originally stood for permeability, specifically vascular permeability. In other words, without it, the blood traveling through your tiny capillaries starts to leak out. When that leaking occurs, you experience all sorts of issues, including nosebleeds and bleeding gums. Red, bleeding gums are a textbook vitamin C deficiency. To fix it, you need to consume more leafy green vegetables and strictly avoid sugar. The molecular structure of sugar is almost identical to that of vitamin C. Because of this similarity, if there is sugar present in your bloodstream, any vitamin C you get from your food or a supplement won't be able to get in. Your body will always prioritize absorbing glucose or sugar over vitamin C. That brings us to number 8, night vision issues. Let's say you struggle to see clearly in the dark, or you're driving in the rain at night and you're just having a really hard time focusing on the road. That is a classic symptom of a vitamin A deficiency, also known as night blindness. Now, are people genuinely deficient in vitamin A? On a global scale, absolutely. There are many people who lack vitamin A simply because their diets are heavy in cereals and refined grains. Even if they are consuming plant-based sources of vitamin A, those are actually just precursors like beta-carotene. People call beta-carotene vitamin A, but it is not the active, usable form known as retinol. True retinol primarily comes from animal products like dairy, butter, fatty fish, cod liver oil, and animal organs like beef liver, which contains massive amounts of vitamin A. If you are attempting to get all of your vitamin A exclusively from plants, your body is going to have a very difficult time converting those precursors into active retinol. If you want an excellent, highly bioavailable source of retinol, you should look no further than egg yolks. Eating egg yolks will easily provide you with enough retinol to start seeing much better in low light conditions. The other factor to consider with a vitamin A deficiency is your body's ability to absorb it. Even if you're eating it, You might not be absorbing it if you lack bile, if you've had your gallbladder removed, or if you have a liver issue like a fatty liver. Since vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin, poor absorption could easily be the underlying cause. Next on the list is chapped lips. The root cause of chapped lips is the exact same issue behind cracked corners of the mouth and cracked heels, a vitamin B2 deficiency. So, what causes a B2 deficiency in the first place? It's typically driven by eating too many refined grains, which completely deplete your B2 reserves. Naturally, B vitamins, especially B2, are found in whole grains, but the refining process strips them away entirely. To remedy this, the first thing you should do is stop eating refined grains altogether. The second step is to start taking nutritional yeast. When buying nutritional yeast, I always recommend getting the unfortified version. It will provide you with a complete, natural spectrum of B vitamins, and you will notice a massive improvement in your skin. If you look at severe, full-blown B vitamin deficiencies like pellagra, you can see just how devastating the effects are on the skin. B vitamins aren't just there to give you daily energy. They are critical for helping your body form healthy, normal skin tissue so it stays nice and soft instead of becoming rough and cracked. A lot of people try to fix this by constantly applying chapstick, lotions, or oils to their lips, only to find that an hour later, their lips are right back to being dry, if not worse. This happens because manufacturers often put ingredients like alcohol or mineral oil into those products, which actually strips away the essential nutrients and healthy fats your skin needs to maintain its proper texture. Next is number 10, pitting edema on the top of your foot or around your ankles. This is a clear indicator of a potassium deficiency. It happens when you don't have enough potassium, or when your ratio of potassium to sodium is completely skewed, meaning your sodium is way too high and your potassium is way too low. Furthermore, eating refined sugar causes your body to retain sodium while actively flushing out potassium. This is why diabetics so frequently experience heavy swelling in their lower extremities due to the high levels of sugar in their blood. If you press your finger firmly into your foot or ankle and it leaves a visible indentation or dent that stays there, that is pitting addition. Believe it or not, back in my mid-30s when I was dealing with severe blood sugar issues, I used to have pitting edema and had no idea what it actually meant. I would press into my ankle and wonder why a dent was staying there. It was a severe potassium deficiency. To correct this, you need to start eating foods that are rich in potassium, specifically leafy green vegetables. However, you need real volume here. We are talking about large, substantial salads to get enough potassium to balance out your salt intake. Salt is perfectly fine to consume, provided you have enough potassium to balance it. Alternatively, you could use a high-quality electrolyte powder with a significant dose of potassium, which will work very quickly to flush that trapped fluid right out of your ankles. Moving on, number 11 is craving ice. If you find yourself constantly wanting to chew on or eat ice, there is a very high probability that you are deficient in iron. You will see this quite a bit in children, as well as in women who are going through their monthly menstrual cycle, where they are actively losing blood and iron, making them anemic. They start craving ice as a way to seek out iron, but because ice obviously doesn't contain any iron, they remain stuck in a state of deficiency. The absolute best sources of the bioavailable iron your body actually needs are red meat, liver, and eggs. If for some reason you cannot or choose not to eat those animal products, you can turn to a supplement. However, instead of a standard synthetic iron supplement, I highly recommend using a grass-fed liver extract or even a spleen extract supplement, both of which are naturally loaded with highly absorbable iron. Next up is angina, which is chest pain. This occurs when the heart muscle itself begins to cramp up during an episode, and that pain is very commonly referred down the left arm. This is a classic symptom of a vitamin E deficiency. There are two crucial things you need to understand about vitamin E. First, a deficiency is almost always brought on by eating refined grains, such as commercial breads, pastas, cereals, crackers, and biscuits. While these grains naturally contain a good amount of vitamin E in their whole form, food manufacturers add chlorine to bleach the flour. This process oxidizes and destroys the vitamin E entirely. Then, as the product sits on grocery store shelves, any remaining vitamin E is lost. When you consume those refined foods, it creates a severe vitamin E deficit in your body. The single most critical tissue in your body that relies on vitamin E is the endothelial lining on the inside of your arteries. If you don't have enough vitamin E protecting those walls, you get massive amounts of rusting and oxidation, which leads to blood clots, calcium buildup, and all sorts of arterial damage. Therefore, vitamin E is incredibly important. The best way to prevent this deficiency is to cut out refined grains completely. If you decide to supplement, make sure you look for a vitamin E that is a tocotrienol rather than a tocopherol. Tocotrienols are about 50 times stronger and more effective than standard tocopherols, making them fantastic for addressing angina-type chest pain. Number 13, leg or calf cramps. This points directly to a magnesium deficiency. So, where do you find magnesium? It sits right at the chemical heart of chlorophyll. And where do you find chlorophyll? In green plants. Once again, this brings us back to the importance of eating large salads, which provide an abundant source of magnesium along with potassium and chlorophyll. When you experience painful leg cramps, chances are very high that you are missing magnesium. Increasing your intake will usually make them disappear completely. Now, there are a few other nutrient deficiencies that can cause cramping, such as a lack of potassium, sodium, or vitamin B1, and I have done separate videos on those. But a magnesium deficiency remains the single most common culprit. Number 14, irritability, excessive overthinking, nervous tension, or constantly feeling grouchy and angry. This is a classic vitamin B1 deficiency. If you are feeling irritable and you take a little bit of nutritional yeast, it will honestly just chill you out completely. You will feel remarkably calm, you'll be much truer to yourself, and people will enjoy being around you a lot more. If you struggle with an overactive mind and nonstop thinking at night, try taking some nutritional yeast right before bed. You can easily find it in convenient tablet form as well, and I will leave a link down below if you want more information on that. But when it comes to turning off that relentless late-night overthinking, where you're trying to solve all the world's problems instead of sleeping, B1 is incredibly effective. It allows you to finally drift off into a peaceful sleep without a million thoughts racing through your head. Number 15, asthma. Asthma is a chronic condition characterized by intense inflammation in the lungs, and it can be profoundly improved by optimizing your vitamin D levels. If you are deficient in vitamin D, which the vast majority of asthmatics are, bringing those levels up can drastically reduce lung inflammation and make breathing significantly easier. This is precisely why, during the summer months, children with asthma who spend time outside playing in the sun often see their symptoms vanish completely. There is also a highly important breathing technique that can help manage asthma attacks. I will link that video below if you haven't watched it yet, as it covers a specific way of breathing that can actually pull someone out of an active asthma attack within a matter of minutes. Number 16, loss of the outer edges of your eyebrows. This symptom is typically indicative of a thyroid issue or an underlying iodine deficiency. Without enough iodine, your body simply cannot produce adequate amounts of thyroid hormones like T4 and T3. If you look at the structure of T4 and T3, those numbers literally represent the number of iodine molecules attached to the hormone. T4 is the inactive form of thyroid hormone, while T3 is the active form created when the body strips away one of those iodine molecules. If your body is running low on either T4 or T3, losing the outer third of your eyebrows is one of the classic physical symptoms that can manifest. If you notice your eyebrows thinning out or disappearing on the ends, you should start taking some natural iodine, with high-quality sea kelp being one of the absolute best sources available. Number 17, chronic tightness in your right trapezius muscle, right through this area here, running all the way up your neck. If you are dealing with persistent tightness or pain right there, you should immediately suspect a gallbladder issue and a severe lack of bile salts. When you don't have enough bile salts, everything becomes congested and physically stuck underneath the right side of your rib cage. There is a specific nerve called the phrenic nerve that travels from that exact area all the way up the right side of your body to your neck. By taking purified bile salts, you effectively thin out the bile, which opens up the ducts and allows everything to drain properly. As soon as that pressure is relieved, your right trapezius muscle will suddenly loosen up and feel completely better. I have a lot of additional resources on this topic, which I will share in the description below. But if you have chronic tightness in that right trap, 9 times out of 10, it is entirely related to your gallbladder backing up because a lack of bile is causing everything to get jammed up, sending referred pain straight to your shoulder. Number 18, nightmares. One of the single most effective ways to completely eliminate vivid nightmares is to take vitamin B1 in the form of nutritional yeast. Deep inside the brain, there is a small structure called the amygdala, which is responsible for regulating the emotion of fear and controlling your fear response. Naturally, nightmares are entirely driven by fear. The function of the amygdala is incredibly similar to how your adrenal glands operate as stress regulators, but the amygdala deals heavily with that raw emotion of fear, and it happens to be loaded with receptors for thiamine, which is vitamin B1. If you introduce more thiamine into the system, it completely calms that part of the brain down, making a person feel secure and stopping nightmares right in their tracks. If your children are suffering from bad dreams, give them a little bit of nutritional yeast. However, you also have to ask the real question. Why are they deficient in B1 to begin with? It's almost always because they are consuming too many refined carbohydrates in the form of refined grains, like breads, pastas, cereals, and crackers, alongside too much sugar. You have to clean up the diet to permanently handle the issue. Number 19, intense cravings for salty chips late at night. When your body is genuinely deficient in sodium, you are naturally going to crave salt. If you are exercising heavily or sweating a lot, your biological need for sodium goes up significantly, and an intense salt craving is your body's way of signaling that deficiency. If you find yourself desperately wanting salty chips at night, you need to start increasing the amount of high-quality sea salt in your diet the very next day. Make sure you are using real sea salt, not standard refined sodium chloride. Start adding it generously to your food, or you can even mix a little bit into your drinking water throughout the day. Keep doing this until you reach a point where you no longer experience those late-night chip cravings, which tells us your sodium levels are finally satisfied. For years, I fell for the false narrative that all salt was inherently bad, so I rarely consumed it. I constantly ate bland foods that lacked both salt and healthy fats. Because I was starving my body of sodium during the day, I would end up downing entire bags of salty chips, popcorn, and Doritos late at night. Back then, I had no real concept of nutrition or the fact that sea salt is not harmful as long as you have enough potassium to balance it out. If you are fighting those nighttime salty cravings, you need to rebalance your electrolytes by adding high-quality sea salt to your routine while ensuring you are getting plenty of potassium alongside it, and you will watch those cravings disappear. Number 20, a stiff lower back or chronic low back pain. This is very frequently caused by a vitamin D deficiency, particularly if you notice the stiffness flaring up during the winter months. All you typically need to do to find relief is start taking a substantial dose of vitamin D, or you can focus on safely generating your own through sun exposure. I will place a link to my recent video on that down in the description box. Vitamin D is one of the most powerful natural anti-inflammatories on the planet, and it works incredibly fast to knock out inflammation anywhere in the body, especially in the lumbar spine. I highly recommend taking at least 10,000 international units IUs per day. For the best results, it can be highly beneficial to take it right before you go to bed or with a heavy meal. Taking it before bed helps enhance your overall sleep quality, while taking it with food ensures maximum absorption since it is a fat-soluble vitamin. Now, when it comes to the specific type of vitamin D, I recommend my own brand. Obviously, I am a bit biased here, but I say that with a touch of sarcasm. The reason I formulated my vitamin D the way I did is because I included vitamin K2 and MCT oil right in the capsule. This means you don't have to worry about consuming extra fats or oils alongside it. Everything is perfectly set up to absorb beautifully. Next up is number 21, craving dirt. While it might sound unusual, craving dirt, a condition known as pica, is actually something you see happen quite a bit with young children. You will also see it occur in women who are menstruating heavily, losing blood, and becoming anemic. When someone is craving dirt, their body is desperately trying to obtain iron. You will even see this happen with animals. If your pet dog suddenly starts eating dirt outside, they are suffering from an iron deficiency. The single best source of iron to correct this is red meat. Red meat provides heme iron, which is the most bioavailable form of iron on the planet, making it vastly superior and easier for your body to absorb compared to plant sources like spinach. If you are dealing with anemia or need to rebuild your iron reserves, eating red meat or a traditional dish of liver and onions is the absolute best way to do it. Number 22, erectile dysfunction. This symptom is directly tied to low testosterone levels, which is fundamentally a zinc deficiency. Zinc is one of the most powerful and effective nutrients for naturally boosting testosterone production and directly resolving this issue. And finally, number 23, depression. If someone is struggling with chronic depression, they are very frequently running on a severe vitamin D deficiency. Vitamin D plays a massive role in boosting the production of serotonin, which is the primary neurotransmitter responsible for regulating your mood. In essence, optimizing your vitamin D acts like a completely natural form of Prozac, giving you those mood-lifting benefits without any of the nasty pharmaceutical side effects. If you are currently feeling depressed, or if you know someone else who is struggling, try giving them a high-quality vitamin D supplement and watch just how rapidly their mood begins to elevate. As a quick side note, another highly effective strategy to try alongside this is intermittent fasting, which has a profound ability to lift and stabilize your overall mood. Now, if you want to learn how to identify whether you are dealing with an underlying liver problem, make sure to check out my dedicated video on that topic right here.